I felt like I was one of the biggest supporters and one of the happiest people when 90s All That was announced. I immediately spoke to my friend, who I've been friends with since grade school, and we both are nostalgic and old school, if you consider 90s old school, that is. Life was great in the old days, and I'm sure a lot of young people feel that way about the 90s. And part of the reason? These shows. But this block now is so out of hand. I'm sure everybody was content at first with only having 4 shows on every weeknight. Then a few weeks go by, maybe a month, and people, including myself, start saying, "Alright, come on, let's change it up a bit. Let's get some new shows and change the time slot." It never happened. I feel they've made more mistakes than accomplishments, and I'd be glad to elaborate on that. For one, they waited way too long to change the original lineup. When they did change it, they replaced Clarissa and Doug with Hey Arnold and Rocco. I thought that was a necessary change for the block, and while I didn't want to get rid of Doug, a change had to happen. I was fully accepting of releasing Clarissa, though. So, Hey Arnold and Rocco came on, and everybody's excited. A mere couple weeks later, and they're pulled, allegedly because of ratings. Well, for one, the time slot Hey Arnold and Doug were in was 1 a.m. to 1:30 a.m. Maybe if it was earlier, you'd have better ratings, but allegedly the ratings weren't as good as when Clarissa and Doug were on at those times, which I find highly, highly hard to believe. Because after the first couple weeks, many people began tuning out when Clarissa came on, and some I'm sure came back a half hour later just for Doug. Hell, some people probably kept Clarissa on merely because Doug was on next. Hey Arnold and Rocco were massive hits in the 90s, and you're going to tell me the ratings for them were that bad compared to Clarissa and Doug? Even if they were, if you gave it a chance, maybe it would be a success, but they pulled it after a mere couple weeks. Now for number 2. They make the awesome transition of moving the block from 12 to 4 to 10 to 2, and it aired 7 days a week. There's a huge difference between 12 a.m. and 10 p.m., even though they're separated by a mere 2 hours. Not as many people can view it at 12 a.m. as they could in the summer, because now, during the fall, the young adults for which this block is aimed for, the demographic it's aimed for, we have jobs and go to school, college, like myself. There was a short streak of when this aired from 10 to 2, then that ended. And now? Now they decide to switch it back to midnight, allegedly again because of ratings. Now at this point, this is when I pretty much stopped watching the block altogether, for the most part. But this is where the logic fails. If the block aired from 10 to 2, that would mean the first running of the shows would be 10 to 12 with reruns from 12 to 2. With the block running from 12 to 4, that would mean the first running of the episodes would be 12 to 2 with reruns 2 to 4, which is what it is right now, and what it originally started as. So, those midnight viewers, Nickelodeon claims gives them better ratings than the 10 p.m. viewers. Those midnight viewers are watching the same exact shows from 12 to 2 as they would have been if the block was still from 10 to 2. The only difference is, from 12 to 4, you're watching the first running of the shows, as opposed to 10 to 2, when from 12 to 2, you're watching the second running of the shows. And I'm sure from 2 to 4, most people already tuned out. So their logic with having more midnight viewers seems to be a cop-out for some other reason that they changed the block back to 12 to 4. It's just a lame excuse to me. My friend brought up the possibility that maybe, people have other shows they want to watch at 10, but like I said, if it still ran from 10 to 2, they could still watch the same exact shows at the same exact time from 12 to 2. Only difference being is that they're watching the second running of the shows, not the first running. Number 3, the constant rerunning of episodes. And I don't mean showing reruns of shows because obviously they're all reruns. But what I'm talking about is showing the same episodes of shows that were already shown earlier in the block. I've caught on to this a few times with All That and Kenan and Kel. I've read online that they don't have the license for all the episodes, and if that's the case, then why do you keep it on the air? Why even make the block to begin with if your license prohibits you from showing most of the episodes? It's like they're only showing parts of the second and third season, and that's all I've seen. Also, the music license they haven't received really sucks because All That isn't All That without the special guest artist playing at the end. Number 4, You Pick. You Pick was awesome at first. The first night I personally tuned in, they had Legends of the Hidden Temple, Space Cases, Rocket Power, and Double Dare. And now, last Friday I was at my friend's house, and he looks at his TV guide to see what's going to be shown, and I thought they messed up and showed the original 90s All That lineup. But they didn't mess up. In fact, it was pretty much the same exact lineup, but the shows were scrambled in order. Kenan and Kel was shown first, then All That, and at one point Doug was shown as well. I'm not sure what the other show was. It could have been Hey Dude, but I'm not sure. And I'll get to Hey Dude in a minute. Now, tonight's lineup, November 18th, is... Are you ready? All That, Doug, All That. As long as I read that correctly. You've got to be kidding me. Not only is it 2 shows, but it's 2 shows that are on every single night. 90s Nick is composed of so much more, yet they continue showing shows that have already been shown. Wow, that's a lot of shows. But back on my serious note, do people really keep voting for this? I find it hard, very, very hard to believe. Anyway, back to Hey Dude. People were calling for Hey Dude, and after a couple weeks, I, along with others, thought, okay, there's plenty other shows to show, so let's switch it up. But they keep it. Hey Dude is by far the weakest link in the current lineup of shows. Out of All That, Kenan and Kel, Hey Dude, and Doug, it's by far the weakest link. And they don't substitute it out. Why not substitute it out for Rocco or Hey Arnold? Oh yeah, I forgot, because they're such bad shows that if you show both of them, or either one of them, the viewership will decline. That makes a lot of sense when you're talking about 2 shows that were staples of 90s Nick. Number 6 is about Rugrats. It's just an absolute disgrace that Rugrats was only shown 1 or 2 times on 90s Nick, 90s All That, which both were on You Pick. I might have said earlier that All That was the show of the 90s for Nickelodeon, or was the kids' show of the 90s in general, but I think I might take that back. I think that belongs to Rugrats, but All That is right up there with them. But it's only been shown 1 or 2 times, Rugrats. Number 7, 90s Nick had all the potential in the world to become a full channel, but when this block came out, they had the insurmountable power to either make 90s Nick or break 90s Nick. If this was still a huge success, we'd be on the road to redemption of redeeming 90s Nick and having a full channel of it. Where's Pete and Pete? Where's Figure It Out?
Where's Nick Guts? Where's Kablam? Where's Our Real Monsters?
Oh yeah, they showed Our Real Monsters once, but that was because it was Halloween. Same with Are You Afraid of the Dark? That's the only reason why they showed it, because it was Halloween. Where's Angry Beavers? Cat Dogs?
Salute Your Shorts, Wild Thornberries, Cousin Skeeter, My Brother and Me, Mystery Files of Shelby Woo, Ren and Stimpy, Animorphs.
The list goes on and on and on. There were other shows that need to be shown, but were only shown very, very, very few times, such as Rugrats, Hey Arnold, Rocco, Alex Mack, Double Dare. The list on this as well goes on and on. Now on a side note about All That and Kenan and Kel, I personally don't want to get rid of All That and Kenan and Kel, but I have a feeling that Nickelodeon is hesitant to let go of those 2 titles because it was so integral to 90s Nick. I can see for All That because that was the face of the 90s, you know, right up there with Rugrats, and essentially plus the title of the block, 90s or All That. All That is in the title of the block. And as for Kenan and Kel, I don't know. It could have been the ridiculous demand for it, and or the fact that it's starring Kenan and Kel. 90s Nick isn't a fad like it may seem. The ratings the first week, especially the first day back in late July, were staggering, and I believe it shattered Teen Nick records. That probably was composed of many people who normally don't even watch Teen Nick, because I can tell you, Teen Nick never was watched in my house until 90s All That came along. Twitter was constantly blowing up with 90s All That or 90s Nick posts, and they've steadily declined. Not because they don't care for 90s Nick anymore, it's because you've turned them off, Nickelodeon. The ratings were fantastic and then slowly died out, which may lead one to believe this was just a short-lived fad, which is totally the opposite of the truth. I can lend credence and substance to this merely by pointing out all the people begging for 90s Nick to make a return over the past 10 years. Those little blocks like the N hardly qualified as a retro block compared to what this was supposed to be. All the potential in the world to make this a full channel, and Nick keeps making mistake after mistake after mistake. So if the ratings were so bad that they had to switch it from 10 to 2 back to 12 to 4, then how can one conclude that this is stable enough to have a full channel? And to reiterate, I don't even believe it was ratings, but that's allegedly what it was that moved this block back 2 hours. Even so, even if it was, my point remains, how could this be a full all-day-long block if you have to move it 2 hours back because the ratings are so bad? I'll tell you how. I'll tell you how to make it a good block, how to make this last and be an all-day-long block. Start showing new shows. Give a bigger variety to vote for and you pick. Move the time slot back. Switch the lineup much more frequently. And slowly work your way into showing this block earlier and earlier in the night in longer and longer periods of time. It's not an insurmountable uphill climb, but it can be done. The question is, will it? Right now, it doesn't seem like it, and I personally feel we should all continue giving Nickelodeon some serious heat because they're destroying our hopes of a full 90s channel, while most of us aren't even enjoying the block anymore as well. I'll have to say, I haven't watched this block in a few weeks. I don't want this to go down as a failure, and I don't want to have to wait another 5 or 10 years after this failure to wait for possibly another 90s Nick block to show up. Hell, in 10 years, maybe there will be a 2000s Nick block will emerge. Oh God, I'll just stop right there. So, this is a direct message to you, Nickelodeon. Get your heads out of your rear ends. Had to censor myself there. Make smarter decisions, and this block won't be a failure. I've named several of the most important reasons this block is heading in the downward direction it's heading in, and it's up to you guys to regain a majority of your audience from the 90s. So from a sincere and passionate Knicks fan, 90s Knicks fan, please don't make this worse, Nickelodeon. Get it together. We all asked for this for a reason, and that's to reincarnate 90s Nickelodeon. And here's one final message for you, Nickelodeon. At this point, I think most of your fans, the 90s Nick fans, have walked away from you. But they didn't run away from you. They walked away from you. So, as long as you call their name, they'll turn around and come back to you.